Welcome back to Redefining Safe. And it's always tough when you do these shows with people that you know and really believe in, because our sidebar conversations, you want to stop everything and bring it back into the show. And that was kind of an example of what just happened. But I also want to come back to just a couple things, and I want to lead into some comments and questions that Tom had, and because it's strong. But if you look at one of the things that proves that programs can be sustainable and gain common ground and respect across multiple class lines, one of the most important parts of that, you'd mentioned Mr. Day's name, who has been part of a child support modification video that I've saw. He teaches a class as well.
Yes.
And he's down to a zero balance on child support. So I'd be willing to bet that people sign up for that class that probably wouldn't follow you or me in there simply because of he's there. They believe it. They know it works.
Oh, yeah.
So it's always important that we really do dig into that. A couple weeks ago, we had Glenn Martin from the Fortune Society here. They have a staff of 200 people, and 100 of them are returning citizens. That speaks well to the program and the sustainability.
Well, and that's what you always try to do is recruit your next leaders through the group, and that's what's going to make it, functional even after.
That's a pretty good tagline, recruit your next leaders through the group. That even rhymes.
All right.
Well, but they're the best leaders, and they know it works, and they know the steps, they know the process, and all, especially returning citizens, need to know that this can be done. I mean, you get out of prison and you look at all these numbers and have all this criteria you have to meet, and it gets overwhelming. But then if you can look at a guy that's sitting right in front of you and he did it and he's done zero balance and everything else, well, maybe I can do this. And so it does a lot for your self-esteem and your motivation to do it.
Yes, absolutely.
And then internally in the organization, this group of people are taught in prison not to trust anyone.
Right.
Do your own time. You have to take care of all this yourself. Well, on this side of the fence, they don't really want to trust your organization to make that happen. But when they see Mr. Day that not only made it happen,
these
guys are real.
Right. He's like, they immediately take to him. I mean, he's, I have a group on Monday. His group size is triple mine, because it's just that. I buy what he's selling because I already know, I'm just some other kind of snake salesman over here with my, hey, look at me, I got a college degree and blah, blah, blah. And they're like, this guy's just as full of crap as the next guy. And so then they see Mr. Day, who they see, all right, he lived it. He knows what he's talking about.
There's energy there.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I mean, it's natural, too. I mean, it's just, you can just look at him and see, oh, that's how easy this is, because they don't have, those positive role models that have been successful and can stay out and can identify with somebody who has made it. More times than not, they're identifying with the guy who was out a couple weeks, hit something, did something, and boom, back in again.
Absolutely.
And what I keep hearing from the men who have completed this program is, this is the longest I've been out. This is the longest I've held down a job. And not my doing, but just that group mentality, that group entity that has been supportive when they first got out and frustrated and hated the world, to seeing, oh, there's a whole bunch of guys like me. If nothing else, I mean, it's kind of like a parenting support group rather than any kind of educational thing that I offer. And
sometimes a support group like that is the most educational.
I know, yeah.
I mean, if somebody's taken my shoes and already walked in them and walked down that road, well, I'm willing to put those shoes on too.
Yeah, it's tough to get funding for that kind of population, though, to have a reentry support group who's, you know what I mean? And it's a lot easier to get it for blind puppies than deadbeat dads and guys coming out of prison.
Well, I think the thing that needs to be said to that, too, though, it kind of adds to every facet of that. It's what I just heard you two talking about as well as an environmental change.
Yeah.
Because if we look at what's successful and what's not, I wouldn't want to put myself in the shoes of a correctional officer and try to engage in this conversation on this level simply because there's some great POs out there. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is most of those people only see their failures.
Right.
Their success stories leave and they never see them again. Right. It's the person they see 2, 3, and 4, and 5 times that they're suddenly there jaded, and their actions becomes part of, frankly, this person's expectations because he isn't even expected to succeed.
Yeah.
So when you see an organization not only get to the grassroots of that, have volunteers involved as well as people who change that environment, that's pretty powerful.
Yes, it is.
We're going to have let's take about 5 minutes or so and talk about some of the obstacles and I know we've addressed some of them, but let's talk about some of the obstacles in detail that these men and women face and some of the ways that we can overcome them by working together by experience.
Well, and I got to say men and women, because we are called the Fatherhood Initiative, but starting February 28th, we're going to be offering this group for women coming who have back child support owed to the state as well, because it's not fair to not.
Then it's called Parenthood Initiative,
and it's called the Fatherhood Initiative for Moms, because we already got the logo established. But
and the great thing about this is Tom won't get a text in a few minutes saying, "What about women?"
What about women?
That's happened.
Oh, I know, and I get asked that question all the time, because one, they hear that they're paying or they're getting forgiven this back child support, and so they're like, well, where's that money? How come that money's not going to go to the mom and the child? Well, it's not money that's being taken away from the mom and the child. It's money that the state has already provided to the mom and the child that a parent owes the state. So, there is that qualification. It can't be money owed to the mom of the child.
Correct. She had to have been on some sort of social assistance. Yeah.
Title 18, Section 8, whatever it takes, which, good for her. She's got to provide for her kids, and half the income is gone, or whatever that support was is gone.
I remember a seminar I did about 3 or 4 years ago, and I think it was when we were kind of first involved with the coalition, and we were doing the Inside Out Dads classes in a couple of prisons at that time, in which we were able to hand them off to you as a con ed as they come back to the community, which was an awesome bridge from what they were learning inside of the prison and finding a way to engage it in the community. But I'll never forget, there was a guy in the front row. You could tell he was a bean counter. Could have been an accountant. Red in the face. Oh, you give these guys a break on that stuff? Well, what? How does that help me? And, that was the perfect question for him to ask, because within 2 seconds I was on the soapbox.
Right.
Because first of all, as you said, this has already been covered by the state, and we're better off to collect something versus nothing. And when something adds up to $400,000 in 6 months, that's a pretty good something and a good place to start.
Yeah.
But then if you look at the societal payoff on that investment over time.
Oh, yeah.
We had a group of 13 people who were fathers in the Inside Out Dads classes inside the prison. And one of the first things that we noticed was when they started writing letters home and started working to modify their child support, their amount of visits went up because we took the deadbeat dad label off the forehead.
Right.
So it's important that we, again, find ways to address those things, but also look at the culture in which they live in.
Well, and child support is just one obstacle that these guys face. Many of them were never married to the mom. And in those situations, their paternal rights are, I don't want to say they don't have any, but
distant at best.
Yeah, when it comes to enforcing whatever right they have, no police officer is gonna do that, because of, just if I was a cop going to a house and this guy's saying that that's my kid and I should, unless I saw something from a judge, I'm not going to take a child away from the mom. Forget about it.
He has to leave, and it's a civil matter.
Yeah, exactly.
And we've dealt with those too, and they get more complex as time goes on, because we live in a mobile world.
Oh,
what
absolutely.
if that person was from Missouri?
Well, we just had that, a month and a half ago, where a guy went down to Missouri, got his child, and got arrested for kidnapping when he got back to the state of Iowa. It was his child. He didn't do it the right way. He got some bad advice, but
and probably a little passion involved at the time.
Absolutely. He knew his child was in danger in that home in Missouri, so he took the bull by the horns. And while I understand the frustration, there's definitely a way to do those things. One of the major parts of my job has become helping men get that access and visitation to their own child, getting that custody legitimized. By what happens when a child is born is child support is ordered. Visitation and access and visitation and custody is not ordered. So a guy has to, or a parent has to go out on their own and initiate that process. Very overwhelming when you don't know the legal process, and then you're told by everybody that you need to go hire an attorney. Now, I love attorneys. I think,
Careful.
They're great, but they're not many willing to work when you're making $8 to $10 an hour.
They have to feed their families too. So one service that I'm able to provide, and I am not an attorney, and I'll tell them that 5 times while I'm talking with them. But we just
and
fill
you
in,
have to.
Absolutely, and we just fill in the blanks of the pro se process, so they can do it on their own. They can go file this paperwork on their own. The courts, I think, not to be a smart aleck, are for the people, not attorneys and clerks and judges.
That's how it should be.
But you have to know how to function within that system, and that's sometimes very difficult. Another thing I'd like to point out is that while child support is ordered and held up by law, and this is the amount you have to pay, and it's all delineated right down to the cent for every month, visitation is not.
No.
Even if you do manage to get through that process, which is overwhelming and a huge burden, if they choose not to comply with that order, there's really not much of a penalty for them.
Right. Well, and that's what I also have to explain is child support and visitation are not interrelated. If you're paying child support, it doesn't mean you get to see your kids, and if you're not paying child support, it doesn't mean you can't see your kids.
Right.
It works both ways, and so we have all these guys who are not wanting to fight for visitation because I owe back child support. I'm like, that has nothing to do with it.
Exactly.
Well, there's the guilt that goes along with that.
There's the guilt and the pride that we all have when we aren't paying our bills or taking care of our family like we've been raised to do. And so there's definitely that. I definitely understand that, but I just try to let them know the state will get their money. You need to go get your rights and visitation today.
We're coming up on another commercial break, so real quick, you have an event coming up here and close to Valentine's Day. Let's plug that real quick.
It's called the Father-Daughter Dance, and again, it's just another way for dads to connect with their kids, especially our daughters. We are the most important man in our daughter's life, and this is the first time that they get to interact with their kids. It's coming up February 18th. The cost is $25, and they can get a hold of me at 868-0528, area code 515.
Redefining Safe will be back after a short break.